Welcome to I Am One with My Soul.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you! Now it's there, the baby.
It is out there.
Yeah.
So,
Born.
yeah, so what is I Am One with My Soul for you?
Well, it's a space where I can spend some time with my soul. And that's always bringing me or getting me present to who I am right now, like in this very minute or hour. So it's even when it's sometimes not so easy to always stay consciously connected to my soul in daily life, those are the times with I'm one with my soul where I can reconnect, take a safe space for that.
As a business psychologist, as part of your work, but also as an artist, why is that important in your world out there?
Yeah, that's a very important question. Because, when we look at the business side of things, we all know and feel and eventually have experienced the pain and suffering that is going on, not only with, big corporations who are doing stuff that is not good for the people and the planet, but also maybe people we know, or even we ourselves who have a job or need to have a job also to pay the rent or whatever it is, and kind of feel that something is inherently wrong with the system, like something went wrong, and we're not close to who we actually are as a humanity as well. And that kind of reflects in the way we work together, the way we collaborate, the way we organize work, the way we understand work. It's more, it's kind of an old thinking of being in a production line and having to produce something, and you go to work from 9 to 7 or to 5, and then it's over, and in that time you have to produce results. It's kind of all not in sync with how we actually function as human beings and human souls. So it's really, for me it's always important in that context when I'm working with our clients and my clients to understand that they feel the same pain, yet they don't have the words yet, in a way. I have to meet them where they are at. And for that, I really have to be connected with what's present between the two of us, but also what's, listen to the nudges of my soul to see what's the next move or the next step. So in a world where so many people are not connected or not consciously connected with their soul anymore, and especially in corporations and organizations, it's so vitally important for me to keep my space and to fill it up with the soul zone. Otherwise, it wouldn't be working. So that's one part. And for my paintings and for my art, and those paintings are actually called soul paintings, so I do paint what my soul senses about the other person's soul. So for that, it's kind of interesting because the space I'm one with my soul is kind of inherently interwaved with the soul painting project, because it got born out of it or born into it, so it's in every painting anyways, in a way. And yet, doing those soul paintings and having the conversations I'm having always brings me back to my soul as well. And maybe that's what the two have in common, the soul paintings and also I'm one with my soul. They bring me back to my soul or make me more conscious of her.
So can you talk a bit more about your experience of the soul of an organization, and what are you seeing in terms of the impact you are having in terms of your approach, looking at the soul, looking at an organization from the soul perspective and the people that work there?
I think in a way, it's interesting that you asked this question because I haven't, it's becoming clear to me now that I'm actually doing the same there as well. What in my work, what I do is over time, so let's say over the time period of a couple of months, half a year, I get to know so many different people in this organization or in one organization I'm working with. And I'm getting, it's like the soul of this organization is getting uncovered like piece by piece. And I'm actually, my task is it to make that visible, like to describe aspects of that soul, aspects of the culture, of the purpose of the organization, and to mirror it back to the people who work there. It's actually the same as I'm doing with my soul paintings. I'm just becoming present to that right now. It's something that is inherently there, and the people working there rarely can describe it themselves. They can describe like bits and pieces, but it's something that it's very often very unconscious for them, but also something they felt unconsciously attracted to, and that's probably why they started working there, or why they started, or why they founded this company, for example. And it's interesting because in so many change projects that I'm in, or transformational processes, it's very clear and urgent that the soul of the organization wants something else it wants something else than what is right now. And that's where most of the pain comes from. That's where most of we need to change something, we need a different structure, we need different leadership teams, we need blah, blah, blah. That's where most of the pain comes from. The soul is actually pulling the organization in a different direction, and people are kind of trying to catch up because they don't understand that the organization has an own soul.
Can you give us a bit of a backdrop just give us a bit of context around, the work that you do as a business psychologist? So how, what is it that you do with the organizations that you've mentioned earlier?
So I work as a consultant in a small firm, and we are supporting organizations, like content-wise, in 3 areas. The one is finding out about the new strategic direction they want to move towards, which is basically, figuring out where the soul of the organization pulls you towards. Yeah. Then we do, and what follows out of that is often changes concerning the culture, changes concerning how do we want to collaborate, how do we want to lead, what do our people need to move into that direction as well. So kind of supporting them in all the follow-up that comes out of it. And also questions like, okay, how do we organize ourselves? How do we take decisions? Who takes which decision? And do we actually still need managers or leaders, or is that something outdated? And can we find a different system? That's the most pressing question right now, because it's so kind of even fashionable to be working agile, or to have a self-managed organization, and yet it's the biggest challenge to bridge the gap between the old and the new right now, because there is not so much of a compromise. So that's what we do content-wise, and everything around that in a way.
So what sort of organisations do you work with? Are they social enterprises, startups? Are they change-making organisations themselves?
It's basically a little bit of everything. So I'm working with a startup in the social entrepreneurship area, for example. But I'm also working with a big corporation that has been here for like 50 years and has a very different structure compared to the startup, for example. And basically a lot of them mid-sized firms that have like between 500 and maybe 5,000 employees, or 2,000. So the ones that in Germany kind of build the biggest block of organizations, and that are very important for the German economy as well. So I'm learning about stuff that I've never would have learned about before. It's basically a little bit of everything with a focus on really those mid-sized, middle-sized firms that are even, the market leader in their area, but nobody knows about them because nobody thinks about plastic foil for diapers, for example.
How do you see your soul's impact in that environment? Like, what do you see? How do you know that you're fulfilling your soul's purpose in that space?
It's a good question, because I very often have the feeling that I'm kind of, digging in the mud, and I'm really getting my hands dirty. Because this is, you can talk a lot about new work and how we could collaborate together, but just seeing what people are going through on their way to that it's a good kind of tricky in a way. It's really like it's getting to the core of what's going on right now. And yet I know that I'm fulfilling my soul's purpose it's a feeling that it brings something in very unique that for me is really natural, and I sometimes even I couldn't mention it as a strength, for example, of mine, but it's basically this competence of putting the soul into words and describing what's going on together with the client and to the client. And that's what I use different languages, Yeah, it's not only that.
What do you use? What language do you use?
Well, apart from the standard ones of, creating PowerPoint slides and words and speaking German, English, and sometimes Portuguese, it's also the language of visualization. So what came naturally to me when I started that job was that I started to do a lot of, putting a strategic direction into pictures or into visuals, or describing the way we want to work together in using pictures for aspects of it. So it's also a language that it's not only talking to the cognitive language mind, but also to the visual understanding things on a different, more subtle, also unconscious level aspect. So visualization is part of it, and yeah.
What impact has it had that you can see?
In essence, it's the impact that people become aware of what's going on and are able to take charge of their own learning process themselves. I haven't said it the way I'm saying it right now, but in essence, that's what's important to create a living system out of an organization. When people are able to sense what's going on, and then I'm the carrier, I'm the mirror. That's my role, because doesn't come easy for everybody, and especially if you're so deep down into your topic or into your area, you kind of lose sight sometimes. So I'm the carrier for more awareness. And if you have that awareness, and if you can sense into what's really going on for you and for the organization at that very moment, you can take charge, you can change something. Or you at least can take the decision if you want to change something or not. You have a choice. If you're unconscious, you don't have a choice. And that's not necessarily a feedback that I would get from the clients, but that's what I see happening.
What you've highlighted there is that people reinvent themselves then?
Yeah, they reinvent themselves based on what they sense what's going on. And what's going on is, it's going on in themselves, but it's also going on inside the organizations. You cannot really separate that. For me, it's like there is one big soul, and there are small little souls inside this big soul that actually form the big soul as well. So once they start seeing what's needed, what change is needed for them, they automatically change the organization. They always have an impact, and this can be positive or negative.
In terms of the organization then, what difference does that approach have globally, say to the old school organisation, the hierarchy, etc.? What is it that these new type of organisations are offering?
Well, they're the only ones who really can deal with the complexities of this world. We come from an old system that lived in the illusion that we could control and predict what would be happening. And the more we control and predict, the more outcome we get, the more money we make. That's kind of the mindset that was behind that. And it kind of worked well for a while. It served a purpose as well. It's not that the system is bad, it's just that it's outdated. And I think we, as a human race, we actually start to understand so much more about this world and this planet. And we also, take our big part in destroying part of the planet, that it doesn't work anymore to say, okay, we know what will be happening in 5 years, so we can start making plans for it, and we just have to execute. What those organizations are able to do then is to sense into the present moment very frequently, and that can be sensing into a project, sensing into a team, sensing into, okay, what do I need today? And they can adapt very, very quickly and very organically. And they are not, they don't live in the past. If they did something and it didn't serve a purpose, it's gone, and it's okay that it's gone. They are really able to leverage also the opportunities that are popping up everywhere. So that's basically the reason why so many organizations want to change, because they see, okay, there is a lot of opportunity behind that, and we need to react to the changes of the markets and stuff like that. And yet there is so much more behind that they don't know yet. But it's okay, they use this anchor. So there's so much more behind that, also in terms of finding your soul at work as well. Because what I also see very often happening when we start working together with clients is that after a while, it becomes very clear that some people are just not a good fit or match to the organization, which for me means their soul doesn't belong to the bigger soul, and they gotta leave. And it's actually in the world we live in today, it's for a lot of CEOs and managers the hardest thing to do, to let go of people and lay people off. Whereas there are also examples, or it's actually, it's better for both sides, and yet it's often the point where the biggest fear arises. And stuff comes up.
So what sort of recommendations or pointers would you offer the listener if they wanted to find out more about reinventing organisations, or how people within an organisation can evolve ecosystem? What and who would you sort of point them towards? And why?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest, or let's say the broadest knowledge that is available on that right now is the book we've mentioned a couple of times already, and that's Reinventing Organizations from Frederic Laloux. Basically because it doesn't only describe different ways of organizing those kinds of new organizations, but it also puts a lot of emphasis on what this means for the people and how we understand people and our true human nature. So he has a big chunk around wholeness and what it actually means to experience wholeness at work. I mean, that's a completely new level. So his book is probably one of the core at the moment about what's going on, and there is a lot resulting out of that. So what I would also point people towards is a forum that is called An Enlivening Edge. And this was founded by also a consultant who read about Laloux's work and who started to create an online platform for everybody who wanted to share experiences around that or has a question content-wise, or there's even a conference right now. So all people engaged in reinventing organizations can be found there. And actually, and I don't really know why this is coming to me, but I think it's also worth mentioning. And I'm only talking about books right now. And books are great to get a feeling for it, and yet, it's about making the experience then. So there are a lot of also groups to be found on those platforms, on meetups, for example, where you can experience what it actually means to work like that. And there's actually this book, Theory U, from Otto Scharmer, and there's also an online course around that. And I guess it fits in beautifully with what Laloux describes about really transforming the way we understand organizations and basically nature and human nature. Because this is also... Yeah, it is a very soulful book, and I have to admit I haven't read it to the end, basically because I felt I already knew so much that he was writing about, and I understood it from the very core of my soul. So if you read it, you can read this book from two perspectives. You can read it with the mindset of, I want to learn about innovation and how innovation happens, and then you can, you will get your share as well. But if you read it from a perspective, okay, how can we also integrate our spirit into work? This will also give you answers. So it's a very spiritual book, actually, and has found its way into a lot of, I would say, conventional settings and is widely accepted. So, yeah, that's another one. I think those two books and the forum are the ones to find.
Let's move on to your soul paintings.
Yes.
So notice how your energy changes.
There's way less mud around, I'm getting my hands dirty in a different way in that area. So,
what's the importance of your work as an artist in terms of you being a change maker and creating an impact? And can you give an example of how your work has served the greater good and what it translates to for you, serving the greater good?
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, the process that I'm going through with those soul paintings is that I have a conversation with the people I'm painting for, the person I'm painting for, and then from my soul I create a painting that also, that has shapes and colors, but also some words or even quotes in it. And then for me the process is over, but then by the time the painting physically moves to its owner, the real story just starts, actually, because that's how the owner develops a relationship to his or her painting. And it's funny because they seem to have for me, they're like a companion for the people I've been painting for, which means that they, in daily life, they either remind people of who they really are and what was important for them. And I remember you, for example, saying about your soul painting, oh, wow, they kind of challenged me as well, because they reminded me of what my soul really wanted. And sometimes, when I was wandering off, this was kind of hard, actually. And I know I have other examples of a friend of mine, for example, who in very hard times for her used to sit in front of her painting, and she would always find care and comfort in the painting and in different areas of the painting. So it's funny because by the time that happens, my job is already done. So it's like having your soul on the wall and being able to connect with it more easily through the painting. And I mean, there are so many ways how I could describe how that creates change in your life, or how that makes the world a better place. But that's as far as I can tell. That's the impact those paintings are having for the people who they belong to make their soul visible and conscious for them, to connect them with their soul or reconnect. And creating something it's both subtle, because you can choose how to look at it or not to look at it, it's both kind of, it's subtle and it doesn't push you, but it's always there. It's always present. It's a very liberate and free way of offering this space for somebody through this painting. It's kind of not limited.
What's the similarity is it then between your soul painting work, which is an expression of your soul, and your work as a business psychologist, stroke consultant?
Making the soul visible. Just that I'm using different methods, techniques, different vehicles. Yeah.
By making the soul visible, that has an impact on the individual or the group of people to transform or challenge.
Yeah. And it's never brutal, or it doesn't use violence. And I'm not talking, in terms of physical violence, but there are so many change makers or people who consider themselves the consultant who will change everything, and so many people just try it with force from the outside, from what they think is best. And for some areas this is helpful if you talk about content or processes or something like that, but in general it doesn't. This approach of showing people what is really there creates a very natural kind of comforting change that is still, it can be uncomfortable, or because it's change, it can be uncomfortable or confronting, but we never use force. We don't have to. And with we, I mean me and my colleagues, because it's already in the system. What we are bringing to, what we are shedding the lights on is already in the system. And yeah, that's the same with my soul painting. I paint what is there. I don't have to come up with something, which is cool. Otherwise, I wouldn't like to paint, actually. The essence that kind of sticks with me is that change that is meant to happen because it comes from the soul. It's not always easy, but what we do, making people aware of the resources that they actually have, and those are very often or always the resources that are needed to tackle the problem that's really there. So it can create very different results, and the results, exactly the results that are needed, because it's all kind of aligned with each other. It is actually like nature, Plants who are needed will grow where they are needed, and the whole ecosystem is a whole system of where every resource and every being kind of fits into the whole, and they all have a purpose. They all serve the greater good in a way. So it is really about making change that is not always comfortable, but never forced. And that is the kind of change that will create the most natural, 100% fitting, needed and wanted results.
What is it you mean by that word, force?
It's kind of misguided force that comes from an intention or a place that is kind of where somebody or something or a system misunderstood their purpose. It's a force that is actually not aligned with what the system really wants.
What, from your experience, is that force aligned to?
Somebody who thinks that he or she is right, and somebody who needs to be right, for example, to fulfill their sense of identity and sense of self. That's kind of the essence. So people are systems who need to be right in order to survive, and they use a lot of misguided force then, because they're fighting for survival and they're in pain, and that's out there a lot as well, also in organizations and also in the area of consulting organizations. Yes. So it's not. There is, for example, if you have to let go a couple of people who are not right for the soul of the organizations, you kind of also need force for that in terms of stamina, and in terms of this probably or eventually this will not be so comfortable for those people, because some of them might see or feel, okay, it's really right, I don't fit in here, but some of them might not see it that way, or for some of them it's really a big crisis, and you need to stay strong and forceful as well in those situations. Coming from the intention and the deep, true knowing that for the greater good and for the whole system, this is the natural decision and the natural flow. Yeah, so it's about the intention and the energy around that. Are you tuned into the system, or are you trapped in pain? And it's interesting also as well, because you can be in pain, and that's completely natural for the system. You can even use it for a lot of creative stuff. But if you're trapped in it, not wanting to see it or feel it, this becomes evil. Because change kind of, okay, maybe, I've heard this word so much in the last couple of months. So, every company has a big change project and nothing changes because they think the change can be managed. It's about change, and it's also about transformation. Change moves you from A to B, and transformation changes the whole alphabet. So I think it's about transformation as well, like the bigger aspects and that for me, for my soul, it was always clear that the world works like that. That's how it functions. Today, things can never stay the same. They just don't. There are aspects that are always present, and yet, this world, our bodies, nature, it's never the same as it is right now. So for me, it's quite natural, and for a lot of people, it's quite challenging.